right. We're living in a men's-dominated world when it comes to venture capital, and today we have a discussion about women representation in venture capital world, as well as in technological startups. I had before arriving here and just before we jump into introductions of everyone, hi, my name is Chris, and I'll be today the moderator for this lovely and esteemed panel. For the past decade, I've been investing in software all around Europe on behalf of Innovationists, and right now I'm more in a purchasing part when we buy out companies. From my experience, this is a men's game in that sense, and in a way, it's really important to talk about problems in a sense, and any problem that needs solving, first we have to acknowledge that it is a problem. Inside of technological game, women are heavily represented, and let's have a conversation on that. Today we're very lucky to have 3 different panelists coming from 3 different perspectives. So we're almost in the entire cycle. I would love to start with you, Joanna, to maybe introduce yourself and also share a bit about your perspective as a founder, as a female founder. Then we'll move on to the next person.
It's okay, great. Thank you very much. Chris, one first remark. Would you say lovely panel if there were no women in the panel?
Yes.
Would you? Okay,
yes.
Then it's fine. Okay, now, my name is Joanna Pruszyńska-Witkowska. I'm a co-founder of a startup called Future Colors, and we are focused on doing career changes for people so they can go to IT and have a glamorous life as being technology as professionals. We already did 2 rounds. We are closing now pre-A. And yes, we are 2 founders, 2 women founders. We started a company which we almost reached 50 years old. So we are not typical your vision of a founder who can be a young male and probably not woman and not over 40. And my perspective is that not much changing, but I see quite big opportunities coming up, which I'd like to explain later on.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Moving on from a founder's perspective, we have the people who are investing in founders, and they come from the venture capital, typically, in that sense. And today we have a representative of that part of the game, in that sense. Małgorzata is representing Pracuj Ventures. Could you introduce yourself and also tell us a bit about your perspective?
Yes, thank you, Chris. Pleasure to be here. Well, I guess I'm here to show that there are women in venture capital, even in Polish venture capital. So I would be happy to say something about my own perspective. Yes, that's definitely a men's game, but I would say that this is for the whole business world. So I must say I got used to it and not very surprised. But I'm happy that we can raise the topic today, and actually even preparing for the panel, I was kind of surprised how bad it is.
That's true, and last but not least, we have Michał, who has this opportunity to look at the perspective from a different point of view, in that sense, from a different perspective. Because Michał, you represent kind of an ecosystem player who deals a lot with diversity and inclusion, deals a lot with many different aspects all around the globe. So if you can tell us a bit more about yourself and what are you bringing into today's conversation.
So welcome all, or for some of you, welcome back, because I had the chance to participate in a panel about Ukraine, so there was an extensive introduction also about Google for Startups. So basically, I want to say that one thing is the ecosystem, the second thing is helping the ecosystem, the third thing is walking the talk. And I must say that I'm super proud because I lead the Central Europe team, which is mainly focused, placed in Poland and Germany, and my team always makes fun that when I'm entering the room, I'm bringing the diversity aspect, because actually out of the 10 people we have, there's 2 men. The rest are women, and I truly believe that, you know, this is kind of the value that we're bringing, because then if we're working with women founders, for example, we're very natural in terms of seeing the challenges. So I'm super happy to be here, super happy to join, and I think that we're going to have a very interesting discussion based on the different perspectives we have and the different experience we bring.
Let's start today's conversation from the founder's perspective in that sense. So if we look in the tech world, and if we even zoom it into any vertical, but if we're going to look at software as a service kind of businesses, and we would assess the top of the software as a service businesses, there is somewhere around 1,300 unicorns, so companies valued over $1 billion. Among them, the number of female CEOs and female founders is less than 1%. Joanna, why do you think that is in that sense? You're also a female founder in Poland, in a country where we also have around 30% of businesses in general are started by founders. But then when it comes to the companies who receive money, there's very little representation of companies who get funded, right? You've went through the cycle of raising money. You also are kind of a successful founder. Let's not jump into the definition of success because everyone has different, but in my opinion, you are. So why do you think that there is this kind of a disparity among the founders, among female versus male founders, and what is happening?
I think the answer is very easy because it's technology, and technology is some very underrepresentation of women. Again, everything started in 1975. Because before that, when computer science became the academic vocational university degree, there was as many women as men in the field. And what happened in 1975? PC, private computers, went to home. And what happened? Parents decided at that moment that boys will be playing with computers. And then next step was the computer games, like Big Mac and all that. It was again very, very masculine. So everything from beginning was very directed to the male. And what happened in 1975? You see, I mean, there's diagrams and there's no science. At this moment, women decided to leave out from computer science. And this is the show, and then there was as many women in medical schools, in law schools, and computer science, and then you have huge drop because it was becoming a male-dominated place, and also because there were specific boys who were playing with computers. Bill Gates was known to say that before he entered university, he would spend 10,000 hours with computer. Women who entered in computer science, they didn't have any experience with computers, and so. There was first, I'm not good enough, which is the basic kind of a barrier for women, and they left out the computer science. So for a really, really long time, computer science was not something in women and men, and that the barrier began, because if you have a startup, two things you have to do. It must be technological, and it has to scale up. So this is the reason why women are not in tech, and that's why they are not in startups. But that, I think, willingly changing.
So do you think that in 2023 and hopefully in the future, things will change? There will be a positive change after close to 50 years in that sense, from the moment that the invention of PC, and then that causing this avalanche of disparity in that sense, and what would have to happen for this to change?
Well, I think it's changing. I mean, we have a lot of, first of all, 67% of our alumni, people who train, are women, and that actually they are the role models for the women. We have a project like Women in IT Career Day, where we have 1,800 attendees, and it's growing each year. So I see there's interest happening, and of course, and a report showing that it is a little bit changing. But there's one big trigger, I think it's now. It's ESG. And climate change investments, which are actually supposed to go 3% of these funds to women. And I think this is the place, and this is a good moment that any founders can first of all think about how they expand in terms of their teams to have women involved, because it's going to be easier to do market access, to have a presentation, to have funding when it's to show to have a woman founders, I mean, with obviously with skills. And this is also important that if you're working any kind of validating a product and think about the climate change which you can access, there's a huge amount of finance and investment which is going, and it's designated that 30% of that has to be in women's hands. So I think this is a huge trigger, huge opportunity, first for women-found companies, and also include women in the founders team.
I'm going to park the discussion about ESG, and I would love to come back to it, because we're briefly starting on the topic of investments, and I think this is a nice bridge to jump to the other side of the equation in that sense, and look into the investments.
That's why I'm in the middle, yeah? Like, okay, exactly. Now I understand.
Exactly. then there's a pattern, so I'll let the audience to figure it out. How are we dealing with it? On the investment side, if there are statistics that talk about investments in a way, and if you're going to look into the market and you're going to assess how much money was given or raised by female founders, or teams who have mixed founders in a way, then for female founders only, $2 out of $100 of any investment goes into female-led products. When it comes to mixed founder teams, there's only $9 out of $100 that goes into that. So altogether, we have 11% of the money going to teams who have female founders. Why is that, Gosia? Why is it?
I'm also asking myself this question. No, honestly, I mean, I can, of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, I was quite surprised that these numbers are so low. But on the other hand, when I work for Pracuj Ventures, we are maybe not a stereotype kind of fund, because we have 50-50. Though the 50 that women represent are kind of lower in the rank, but let's say in that case it's...
By 50-50 you mean that...
we are 2 women and 2 men.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I mean. In our case, I'd say that I mean, the women are doing the scouting in our case, yeah? So, so we are, I wouldn't say we are biased. Sometimes even I'd say that when I see a female founder, I'm like, okay, I will look into that. But obviously, I mean, there are not many women who come for funding. So this is for sure one of the reasons. And when I see the data that, you know, so little money goes to the female founding startups, female founded, I'm thinking like, okay, so maybe, probably, I'd say that's the reason, one of the reasons is that women don't, either they don't build companies like that, or they don't go for the VC funding. So this is one of the explanations, because, you know, starting a company is one thing, but growing it with the venture capital funds is a totally different thing, and it's not for everybody. Yeah, so it's like it's a high risk investment. The investors are pushing you, need to grow faster and faster. Right now, they also say you need to bring profits. It's new fashion.
From the beginning.
Yeah. So. So I'd say that one of the reasons might be that, but I don't know. I also heard from the female founders that they kind of encounter situations when they are treated like they entered the men's jungle. So where is the man? And there are cases like this. I'm fortunate enough to not be a part of such environments. So in our case, I think we are trying not to be biased in any way, but. Obviously, there is an issue with the female raising capital from venture capital, or in general, just building a companies and new technologies.
So on one hand, you said that there is a balance in your own team. So on the general partner side, in the vehicle, there is parity. So
on the vehicle, yeah.
Exactly. how does it look like in your portfolio, in a sense that you invest in companies? Do you have a lot of female founders in general in your portfolio?
One.
One. Out
Yes.
of?
Huh?
Out of?
15.
1 out of 15. It's still better than the statistics that we have on the market, which is...
Yeah, yeah. That's why I'm saying that when the female comes, you know, with the deck, I'm like, I'm kind of biased to like, okay, but in a positive way, yeah. So I'm trying to be actually even more helpful, but there are not many women. But the positive side of this is that I work, like our fund exists for like 3 years, 3.5, and I see more women coming. So it is changing. At least in our case, we are a specialized fund. We invest only in HR technology. So of course, I only see the little parts of the market, yeah, but we see more women coming now.
Okay. Using this opportunity of a small change that you see in the market, we also have an opportunity today to kind of dig deeper into the market overview. So, Michał, you've been supporting research that has been conducted for Central Eastern Europe as well as for pan-European outlook when it comes to women in VC. And you, as a Google for Startups, have a bit of information and also are playing on this field. So how is it? How does it look like from on a meta level, in your opinion? What are you doing actively in order to change this parity?
Yeah. So basically, as you kind of introduced us as the ecosystem player, so we're trying to act on the ecosystem with the programs and initiatives we're doing, but also act on describing the ecosystem with partners. Yeah? And one of the initiatives, exactly as you said, was the partnership with the European Women in VC and mainly Experior VC Fund, which is 100% woman-led fund, to kind of see, okay, on the C level, how does it look like in terms of women funding? And then on the European level, how does it look like? And the paradox was it didn't like change a bit. Regardless if it was a research for CE or it was research for Europe, it's kind of same numbers, yeah? And they are in the single digits, which is kind of a bad thing. But I wanted also to come back to what you were saying in terms of you know, computing and stuff that boys played computers and things. That's 100% true. At the same time, the positive thing now is that, for example, if you take a look at the mobile games, which is now becoming a huge thing, and if you take a look at the percent of women playing the mobile games, it's totally different than it used to be with the computers. Like boys were playing mostly the computer, now women are entering more into, and there's more content for women in terms of the games, which I think in a couple of years can also bring this potential of, you know, the technology being closer. But the other thing in terms of the programmers or STEAM graduates, look what is happening with AI now. Yeah, like we're democratizing the access to programming. Like now AI can write a code for you. So this should also enable people that, and I'm not saying only women, I'm saying in general, the general population, be more into technical products and technical products creation without so much need for the education in terms of the STEAM only. So one thing is, of course, making sure that there's more and more women in the STEAM universities and in STEAM topics, but at the same time, I think that the challenge is in enabling access to the entrepreneurship, learning the entrepreneurship, building self-confidence, building these elements that actually enable you to start the company even if you don't have the full skills that you would need, but you now have so much tools that you can access that it should enable really the change. And the other thing is, you know, we're looking from the point of view of initiatives that we're doing. For example, we were running for a couple of years in Germany, in the market that also my team is responsible for, purely women founders programs, which are basically focused on the women founders in several industries to help them actually scale, grow their business, etc. Yeah? When we were doing the Ukrainian support fund, for example, recently, we were organizing, for example, a woman leadership breakfast so that women can kind of, you know, support each other. But at the same time, what we're noticing is more and more women don't actually want to be put in this bubble. It's actually the thing that, okay, we can talk in a specific group that has a specific challenge, but at the same time, like, I really believe that we should be kind of, I would say, gender agnostic. Like, look at the quality of the product, look at the things that we really, from the point of view of investors, for example, from the point of view of the chances of the product on the market, from the point of view of the team, and team should be diverse. Maybe it's controversial, but I would say it shouldn't be an only women team, or it shouldn't be 100% a men team. It shouldn't be even the same nationality team. Like, the more diverse team you're building, the better the product is, the broader the audience it will reach. So I believe that we should really think in terms of, okay, technology is democratizing the access and possibilities. A lot of positive changes are happening. And of course, the numbers don't change yet, because if we compare 98% of the funding to 2%, for example, and then this 2% grows by 50%, it's still 3% versus 97. So this kind of discussions leads us to actually extremely long time that we would achieve probably the 50-50. So I would really take a look from the point of view of trying to democratize access to all the things that enable you to build a company, rather than just, the funding part itself. Yeah.
Can I jump?
Sure.
Just building on what Michał said, it's like, for venture capital, normally you have investors behind, which are called limited partners, and they are often men, because you need to be wealthy, you need to like high risk investments, and there are many men. So then you have investment teams, which often are a lot of men. But like for me, for example, when I was entering the market 9 years ago, the job market, honestly, it was not hard to get to the investment funds. It wasn't, because the good thing about the venture capital in Poland is that it's not like old industry where it will take so many years to rebuild. It's actually quite new industry. So it's like with the banking system, it's actually easier sometimes to develop it and to change it, because we don't have that much tradition of that it's a male's game, for example, so.
I do, on one hand, I do agree with what you said, that it's relatively easy to break into this ecosystem in Poland, although I think
harder to grow up.
Yes. Although I do think we're already having the VC game in Poland exists for 20-something years, right? We have the very beginning in 1999.
Yeah, but last 10 years, I'd say, was like...
First initiatives, jumping new funds. Inside of those funds, Experior is the only fund that has female GPs in that.
And Black Swan, I think.
Right?
Yeah.
Then we have just very limited partner level or GP level female representation. For the past 7 or 8 years, I've been running Meetup VC, where we invite only VCs for an evening event, which sometimes
very appreciated,
which sometimes we paired up with Wolf Summit. The list is not growing. It's not growing when it comes to partner level female GPs in that sense. So it is easy to break in. It's hard to join the table in that sense. The club, right? And two things that you said. On one hand, we have the LP side of the game. GPs only interact with 20% of when GPs, so general partners, funds, interact with their investors because they have to collect money, only 20% of those interactions are actually with women in that sense. So they only raise from 20% of women, right? And then when it comes to investment committees, so how a venture capital firm makes a decision, less than 20% of women are inside of the investment committees, right? So there is this
global, I think, because global. In Poland it's like
in Poland
8%.
It's even less, right? It's even less. So going back to education, STEM, and other things, going back to that 1975, and now having the opportunity to change things, do you think it's going to take 50 more years to change this equation, or what can be done in order to make sure that there is more parity on STEM, there's more parity on entrepreneurship, there's more parity when it comes to venture capital in that sense?
Well, I think, first of all, we have to really shout out and say, you know, it really has common sense that to include women in the teams. First of all, because I think it's easier to include women than to say, hey, women, invite startups. And then, of course, go into shout again to the VC to say, you also, if you see a startup with only very good in project and you have interest, you should also be responsible to tell them, guys, I think you should invite some women to your team, because really they can have better perspective, they have access to the market, they have risk management, they have better financial results, and I think it's really wise for you to include women. So I think that's just low-hanging fruit, because you already have all this team and you can make this empowerment. Second of all, of course, it's shout and actually do role models to women, and I think it would be great if you could go, Małgosia could speak to young girls, not young girls, but women who are in, you know, Polish economic schools or whatever, to tell them that it's really, think about it, because I think it's very natural, because I have 4 children, of which 3 are boys and 2 of them already graduating from university. Both of them are starting a startup. They don't want to go to corporates, they want to do startups. It's really in their mindset. So I wonder, I didn't speak to their friends, girlfriends, they're actually in medical school, so that's different. Anyway, so I didn't ask them what are their friends, female friends think about if they want to go to corporation, but for my gut feeling, they would prefer to start in corporation because it's a security, job security.
Security, yeah, and for women it's important.
Yeah, and this is the key thing. I mean, if you look into results about why the women founders are doing very good results, it's also the very risk managing. And I know that from my side, because it took us a little bit longer than we thought. Not we thought, we actually didn't want to reach for another funding, because we want to make sure that we are doing well, that we starting, you know, we are already in 4 countries, and now we tested our product, we tested the market, and now we're going for another round. And even our investors saying, you know, why don't you reach for the money? I say, no, we're not ready enough. So, you know, I understand that, because I'm also a founder. So the security issue is a huge thing for women. And I really don't have an answer how we can break that, because I don't know, because it's really, that's why we are created. It's in the right, good side and the bad side. But I think, first of all, it's a long-hanging fruit is to reach out to the founders at the moment and tell them, guys, you should invite more women to your board, more women to your teams. And I think that's going to become a major accelerating to change.
Yeah, and building on top of it, I think one is the bottom-up thing, the other is top-down. Yeah, like look what happened with the ecosystem in Poland throughout the last several years, when the Polish Development Fund kind of invested a lot of money into the VCs. Yeah, why don't have a parity in the investment, and kind of, I know it's a bit artificial thing in terms of like, okay, you're putting some pressure in terms of the funds, but at the same time, if it was possible to develop the ecosystem in Poland with the public money, then I think the legislation part should also take part on the parity of bringing more women into the VC. The opposite direction is women in the corporate world. Like there's a lot of great leaders in the corporate world, like them joining the VCs, or them as a next step in the career, or as a venture partner, however you call it. This is also a big opportunity in terms of, you know, building the understanding, because basically there's no, I think, one single thing that changes the you know, the how many women will be in the boards of the funds, or in the funds in general. I think there's several things that need to happen, as we said, yeah, top down, bottom up, technology elements that actually tweak these changes. And I think that, you know, taking a look at also the VCs nowadays, like who is starting a VCs? Basically men that either come from the, I don't know, M&A market from corporations, which basically used to be a purely men kind of led industry, or a successful founders that finished, sold the company, did an exit, and is starting a venture or starting starting another thing, and that's coming back to 75, and the things that most of them were kind of men. So now the VC is composed out of the people that were historically mostly men. Yeah, but this changes. There's more women in corporate world. There's more women that's starting the companies. If we have in Poland couple of exits of women founders from the startups,
This 2%.
still,
I mean,
we need to start from something. Yeah, we can always say, okay, it doesn't work. What can we do? Or we can kind of build up several, dots in the ecosystem and then try to connect them so that it changes. Yeah. So I think there's a lot of positive things happening now, but still we're far away yet from the saying, okay, it's double digit or it's more. Yeah.
Sure. We have an example of that because we have Ella Mare, who was one of the founders of Base, successful exit, creating a fund, impact fund, right? 50 years. I wanted to hook on to something what you said in a way, because you've mentioned that maybe we should look at what PFR did on the Polish market, and there is this systematic approach. And I wanted to use this opportunity that we have a VC sitting right next to, within us. I wonder, how would you react to have an investment strategy which would require you to invest 20% of assets into female founders, in a sense that that the teams that you're investing in have to have at least one female founder? What's the reaction?
That it gets us kind of, I don't know. I mean, we are a very flexible fund, yeah. So we don't like the rules that we need to put money somewhere, and that's also why we don't have public funds. But I mean, I don't know. I have kind of personal approach here because I honestly, I'm not a very big fan of this quota that, or how should we call it, parity. Is it parity?
Sure.
In English, yeah. So because the problem I see is that often I saw it just from my experience, not in our funds, but kind of saw it that you invite women to the table because you want to meet the quota, but you don't really listen to them, or they sometimes shouldn't be there, but you just want to, comply. And this is terrible. And this is terrible for other women to see also, because this is really bad. So for me, much better, but I know it takes much longer, it's just that these men in the room understand the value of women in the team, or in among founders. Yes, even the data that you shared with us, and maybe you can be shared with other participants, is that women are actually building more successful companies when they get the chance. Yeah, so, and they are better in many aspects, and so. This is actually for me more important, yeah, than just meeting. Okay, now we need to do one investment in female-founded startup, yeah. But as I said, we are not very representative because we are, in our case, women are assessing the funds, and I never heard the phrase "oh no, it's run by women, so I will not invest in it." There were other reasons.
Yeah, living on a free market where we make money, things happen in that way. And for the last also 50 years, since we have around the PC a bit earlier when the VC game started, and we ended up here. So maybe we have to do a bit of a systematic change in that sense. During this, I had a couple of panelists raising hands, so let's go.
Okay, I have to say that I don't agree. First of all, I'll show you a short story. You probably know that Scandinavia has the biggest representation of women in the board. In Norway, do you know how it was achieved? It was achieved because a Minister of Economy, a male, read a report regarding how successful companies are, which are run with percentage, at least 30% of the boards are female. And he said, I want to have successful companies much more like that. I want to scale up this syndrome. And what he did, he put up regulation. First regulation ever was in Norway. Then other countries continue to follow. These three countries are most innovative, technology advanced, with a great work-life balance and all this sort of well-being acceptance levels high as well. So they did it, a regulation, and it will be successful. I don't see, as being in business for now almost 3 years, nothing else will work. We need to have to really push that, because you have all the reports in the world from JP Morgan, McKinsey, who shows that it really makes economic sense to have women among the teams. So this is the only way, if you push them from bottom up, whatever, it's the only way to change. So I don't believe that it's really think that it's going to naturally take place. We know it's 130 years which is going to take place to have natural. We don't have time, because first of all, we need to have much better regulation for the climate change, and we have to have much more regulation for women participation. And I think we should have a very holistic approach to that, but it's not all the way that we really have to think that everyone responsible to have diverse groups of teams in the startup situation and VC as well.
Yeah, and I'll continue also on this thing, like there are also verticals that there are startups which are basically like, there's more startups, for example, led by women than in men. And I think that putting the regulation, and it doesn't have to be like this approach that, okay, this fund has to allocate 20% of the quota. Yeah, it can be a vertical fund, for example, where we simply see that more projects are led by, and I would say again, mixed teams. I wouldn't say so much on, again, woman team, because that's how you create another bubble. Yeah,
Agreed.
We're living in one bubble, creating another bubble, and it's going to be artificial bubble. Yeah, like let's really think about mixed teams, making sure that there's a percentage of the squad that is diverse, yeah, and again, it's not only women; it's also different races, different stuff within the different criteria within the selection team, but make the team diverse simply. Yeah.
If I want to just last things to add, I think it's kind of breaks the being laziness. Because I think, because also I was doing this special program, which was like women experts, and I was trying to get more a database of women to put them more into panels and media. And I only noticed that because everyone was lazy, I think I only know the person I know, so that's it. Once you tell them, push it a little bit harder and say, can you make the little effort to see around you? And maybe definitely there are great women you can include, because they have the skills, they have abilities, and definitely you can do. I can show you again from my personal example. My son runs a startup which is in AI finance, and he said they want to do finance, but for ESG. I said, okay, but you still have two male founders. How you want to be in the ESG? And you really have to have a team which is mixed. It took him 5 minutes. 5 minutes to find amazing woman, a girl from LSE, just as a woman from LSE as what he graduated, who is in ESG, who is in fintech, so has every possible, it's just perfect match. 5 minutes. And she's on the board, and she's going to be in the team. So just try harder. That's it, what I'm asking.
Trying harder, looking at things. I'm also wondering about different roles and different things that we can do on a bottom-up approach in that sense. And one of the examples here would be mentorship, right? What are the examples of good mentorship that actually involve more women in our industry? Do you have any in that sense in your small bubbles or big bubbles?
Yeah, I'm going to give you an example. Maybe not mentorships, but workshops. Yeah, and programs like we are running several programs like growth academies, accelerators across Europe globally. One of the best rated parts of the program that we have within the programs that we've run in Central Eastern Europe is actually business model mastering, which is basically learning startups kind of how to pivot, change, set up the business model. And it's actually run by Agnieszka Węglarz, who left the corporate world, started her company specialized in the business modeling, and it works perfectly well. Yeah, so I think that again, knowledge should be agnostic in terms of the gender. You should focus on the quality of the knowledge that you're delivering, and you shouldn't look at whether it's a man or a woman delivering this knowledge. If you have an expert and if you have a person that perfectly knows the topic, this is the main value that you bring. You bring the knowledge. Yeah?
Can I take it from here? So, I mean, obviously, Michał, you are doing a lot in the like taking care of the ecosystem, and I can say about my kind of personal experiences because I'm not like, even actually yesterday when I was like on the train, I even Googled like women in VC, and it's actually, I found like a big community, but it's more like American. But there are like 4,000 women there, and I will probably look into that. Maybe it's interesting. But the good thing, like, and maybe also here is like a invitation for a women, not only in venture capital, but in general in business, that women have one thing among many others, which is really kind of valuable. They do want to help other women, and they share the knowledge. So I was actually in like last couple of weeks talking to a couple of women, which from the more from the corporate world, because I agree that in the corporate world it's like we have more women in the kind of management positions compared to venture capital, and they were open. I mean, I just asked them if you can share some things with me, and they shared. So this is you sometimes you just need to ask, and for that support, like how you did it, what you do, what you don't do. And often they just share how to operate in the male-dominated world. Yeah, so this is sometimes like one-to-one mentorships are also very valuable.
Okay, perfect. Unfortunately, we're slowly running out of time, and the organizers multiple times told me that we should finish this. So, using this a bit of pressure,
but we have microphones.
I want to.
We still have the mics.
Oh, true.
The women here are pressing.
That's true. I want to point out to one thing, and I would like us to focus on one number. The number that I said at the very beginning. In a sense, 11 out of $100 ever invested go to gender diverse teams. $89 goes to male only. Let's make sure that this number, this $11, will grow and will grow
till we see
each other next time. With the next report. If you guys want to read more, there's a short report connected to this published on Talenti LinkedIn page. So check out the Talenti LinkedIn page. There's more information, more data, and more insights into women in venture capital and technology. Thank you so much for joining me this afternoon, and thank you for sharing your opinions from three different bubbles.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you. I have to be honest, that last sentence, until we meet again. How about you meet in 2 weeks? And it should be done by then, please. Perfect. I know, but I wish it would be. Anyway, we are going into the next panel discussion. Also, a bit of continuation of the women in the business, women in the involvement of different startups, everything that's probably connected with equality and business. So we are going to rearrange the stage just a little bit more to fit one more person in. And while we are doing that, I'm going to announce the name of the next panel discussion, which is